Hi, and welcome to the Dingers Podcast, episode 49. This is your host, Mitch. I'm here with my boys, Jeff and Jake. How are you guys tonight?
Not bad. How's Mitch and how's Jake?
I'm doing well, boys. Thanks for having me back. It was nice watching a little Pete Alonso home run derby action before hopping on here.
Yeah, he hit some tanks. And what do you get up to, 35?
35, and my prediction was 25, and he hit that in the first 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And then 10 more. I mean, people are sleeping on him going into the derby. I think he was my chosen winner for sure.
Yeah, it's a good stacked pool. I didn't like that they have Ohtani and Soto going against each other in the first round. That's tough. That's a tough draw.
Yeah,
those are two guys that you would like to see on opposite sides of the bracket. But yeah, it's been entertaining
for sure. Yeah. I don't know. Is Ohtani hitting right now? I think he's up right now, but I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah,
I think Jeff has one.
He's on at 20 with 5 seconds to go in his bonus time.
Okay.
What I didn't like is all the camera, because it has to be so fast. The camera angles jump, and it's like it's really hard to follow. They need to figure something. I didn't like that they had to wait back in the day until the ball landed before the next pitch. I didn't like that. So they need to find a happy medium in this home run derby, just for viewership, for fans to be able to because All-Star Game, home run derby, you draw in some of the not regular baseball fans to watch, and they need to follow it a little bit better. So that's my only beef with it, but it's been entertaining.
They put up a ton of stat, I think I'm on the StatCast channel, and there's all sorts of crap they're putting up. They just need to show the dingers.
Yep, show the dingers. Yep, people want to see the dingers, man. This episode is presented to you by ChiCitySports.com. If you're interested in all things Chicago sports, this is your place. Go check out all the forums and all the great podcasts on ChiCitySports.com. Let's start out with our Crack Our Beer Player of the Week, who we chose for this week's Player of the Week. Jeffrey, how about you start us off?
I'm going to go with Wilson Contreras for putting all his teammates on notice.
That's a good one. We will definitely be digging a little deeper into that later in this episode. But Willie, we'll get into it later. My Crack a Beer, and this little thing is sponsored by Toppling Goliath. I have my Pompeii Beach. Jake, if you can get your hands on one of these suckers, these are amazing. I don't know if you're a Pompeii guy, IPA. This is like summer in your mouth. It's amazing. So definitely, I don't know if you guys have Hy-Vees.
Yeah, we do actually. And there's a great craft beer spot right up the road from me that I'm going to have to. I've had Toppling Goliath before, but I have not had that one.
This is their new one for summer. So they've had it up in their brewery on tap before, the last couple summers.
Yeah.
But now they just started put it in cans and distributing it out. So it's amazing. I had it last week for the first time on the show, and I was like, oh man, this is some amazing beer.
Yeah, I'm due to restock the fridge, so I'll have to look into that.
Well,
yep.
You'll have to hurry out and get some in your mouth.
Yep.
Says.
Actually got a bachelor party this weekend, so now I know what to bring.
There you go.
In your head, or do you got some 6-month-old, 8-month-old pumpkin spice beer you could get people?
Oh yeah. There's some garbage buried back in the fridge it was good once upon a time, but no longer.
You got to take that to the bachelor party, because at some point in the night it will get drank.
Yeah, there you go.
Point.
Get that crappy beer on the people that don't really care about what type of beer they're drinking, and get yourself some good stuff like Toppling Goliath, because this stuff, especially as Pompeii Beach, man, it's definitely some good stuff there. A little weekend review. Philly series did not go well, only won 1 out of 4. And then we split with the Cardinals, with the game on Sunday getting rained out. I don't know if that was a good thing or maybe a blessing in disguise after Contreras' comments. Maybe the clubhouse needed a little timeout, 20-second timeout with this all-star break. But in the game that we did win, Jake, you were at the game, weren't you?
I was. Yeah, I was. It's a great atmosphere. We were sitting up in the 400 level, which I've never willingly sat up there, but the tickets we got were bought before things opened up to 100% capacity. And it's like, we're not going to be able to sell these, so we're just going to sit up there. And it was great. I mean, it's actually a pretty good view. I posted a video on Twitter while I was there of Bryant's bases clearing double, which was great to see. I mean, I was afraid I wasn't going to get to see him play, and that could be the last game I get to see him play in a Cubs uniform. You know, hoping and praying that is not the case. But yeah, no, it was great. Beautiful weather, beautiful day for a ball game, and first time back at Wrigley in a couple of years, so it was a blast.
In like from just those two games, that seems like it's like encompasses the whole season of Cubs baseball. The high on Friday, and then the extreme low, just difficult game to watch. And our buddy was at the game. Andy, our buddy Andy Beckman, works out with us, police officer. He was at the game on Saturday, and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" And then after the game, I'm like, "Dude, I'm sorry. Like that was a tough one. Rainy,
rain delay,
didn't score a run. Like just not."
Well, even going into the Friday game, because the Thursday game, that was the 8-0 loss to Philly, right? Was it 8-0 the final score?
It was either 8-0 or
8-0
or 8-1. I try not to remember terrible things.
Yeah, me either. I did not really pay close attention to that one as soon as it got out of hand. But I remember going into, like, I drove down to Chicago from Madison on Friday, and I was like, at least I'll be with the boys.
8-0 loss.
Yeah, I was like, well, at least I get to be with the boys. I hadn't seen my buddies in a couple years either. So one of them was in town from Denmark, so he wanted to go see the Cubbies, and that was fun. I mean, it's been the last month or so of Cubs baseball has been very boom or bust, and I'm very glad I was there for a boom game.
Yeah, let's get into that Friday game, because that was a fun game to watch. You had Wisdom, who had a really good game there. You talked about Bryant coming up with that huge, and that was probably the biggest turning point in that game when he comes up to bat, bases juiced. We needed some runs there, and he comes through huge with looked like a dinger off the bat. Like we thought it was, and so that was just, and Jock had some really good plays, hit the ball well. Just that seemed like a good team win.
Yeah, and
then you go to the next night, and things they didn't look sharp, they didn't look ready to play, and there was the Rizzo. Like, you have to give Rizzo on Sunday that effort of going into the stands and basically climbing the fence or the netting there, going after the ball. So I never want to say that players aren't trying or that they don't care. They care. They definitely care about their performance. They care about how they're playing. Especially those guys, their contract's up. They're playing for the next year contract. Right. So I never want to say that they're not trying. But after the game, Contreras had some comments about the team's effort. When asked late Saturday if the Cubs' effort was there in the loss to the Cardinals, here's what Contreras responded. He said, "No, I don't. To be honest," and that's he just wanted to be honest with them and saying that, hey, I don't think our effort was there. He went on to kind of say, I'm paraphrasing, like, hey, I get up for every game, no matter what it is. I think some people are distracted going into the All-Star break, and not everybody can get up for games like me and Javi. And so he kind of lumped him and Javi together. And that's one thing, like, as we dig into this, do you think there is a little bit of a divide in this team now? Like, he kind of drew the line in the sand of, like, here's me and Javi and these other guys, and then there's some other guys that maybe aren't playing. And I trace it back to, what was it, 4 weeks ago when he got into it in the dugout with Rizzo.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was kept behind closed doors, which should be done. But here he gets to a point where he says some honest things to the media. And but do you think there's some divides in this team? What are your guys' thoughts?
I thought it was interesting. So I have, like, I have like a somewhat inside source that has access to the players. And they don't know the players on a personal level, but they do get to interact with them. And they told me that Rizzo kind of has a public facing persona, but he can definitely be a diva when, at the end of the day. And it was disappointing to hear. And again, that's just one person's recount. They've been close to the Cubs for a handful of years, so they've gotten to experience a lot of different players, and there have been a lot of positive reviews and some negative. And all I can think is that maybe that's been elevated this season with all the pressure on the team, and maybe he felt lowballed by that extension offer, and he's got a chip on his shoulder this season, and his performance hasn't really lived up to the money that he obviously wants to be making. And so it's not surprising to me that someone like Contreras, there is kind of a hitch there, because we see the passion that he plays with. It's been talked about since he came up, and Javi's the same way, of course. I don't know. That's not to say that Rizzo's not trying. But you wonder kind of what the one-on-one interactions are like going on in the locker room, and I think you calling that out from a few weeks ago, Mitch, is a good point. I think tensions are just continuing to rise, especially as guys don't know where they're going to be at this point next month. So it's interesting to look at right now, and it's a bummer that things could go out this way when we may see some guys traded off at the end of the month, but. I'm happy that Wilson called people out. I don't think he did anything wrong.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Jeff? You liked it.
Yeah, I liked it for sure. And I agree with Jake. I don't have a problem with him doing it. I feel like they're not a team, because there's so many players that are probably feeling like, well, I'm not going to be here in about 2-3 weeks. What's the point? So I don't think there's a whole lot of team chemistry going on right now. And I'm sure there's moments in that locker room where you can hear a pin drop because nobody's really probably interacting with each other. They're going through their pregame routine, getting ready to go out on the field, and business is business. But I don't see a lot of energy when they're out there on the field playing defense. Especially at times, what are we like, one of the worst teams with batting average and hitting with runners in scoring position? I just don't see, like, I don't know. I don't want to say effort, but when there's runners on the corners with no outs and you can't get the guy on third home repeatedly, it's frustrating and it's confusing. But yeah, I honestly think there's going to be, like, people are going to read the lineup one day and be like, who are these guys?
Yep.
Because there's
right around the corner. Yeah,
there's going to be that many new faces.
And I wouldn't say it's effort. I think you're right. It's not effort. It might be focus. There's a lot of distractions going on.
Yeah.
And you can even go back to when, Baez was lumped in with Contreras lumped Baez in, but not too long ago, Baez forgot how many outs there were. And just that locking in of being focused. I think there's a lot of distractions going on, and rightfully so. I get it. Like, things are changing and you're not necessarily always focused. Like, it's like these guys have to go to the prom every single day, but they know that they're going to break up with their prom date after prom. And so they're kind of like checking the field out as they're at prom. They know something's going to happen. And so they're like, well, I'm here showing up to the dance every day, but I don't necessarily want to dance with my partner that I came here with.
Right.
And so
that's a pretty spot on analogy. Yeah. I think that's a really good way to put it.
I do like that Ross kind of had some things to say about it. And his big thing was those are things that he wishes were handled behind closed doors.
Right.
And I have to agree with him. It's not the day and age where players rip on each other or managers just rip on players. That's kind of long gone. Like, that doesn't happen. It's more internally. Let's handle it in-house. Let's especially not let the media get a hold of this, especially not Chicago media, because they like to run with anything and everything and make it a bigger deal than it actually is. But just handling in-house. And from
We're
even listening,
to you, Bob Woodward.
When even listening to Contreras live, it didn't seem like he was really like trying to call anybody out. They asked him like, "Hey, how do you think tonight's effort was?" And he answered honestly like, "No, I don't think it was there." Like,
Yeah.
I think he would have been fine had he not brought Javi into it. If he
Yep.
hadn't named one person specific, like another person specifically, I think it would have gone over just fine. And I think, before I forget to mention, I think the one thing that's kind of bumming me out in the midst of all of this is I've seen people calling for David Ross's job. It's like, no. It's people are like, oh, Ross has lost control of the clubhouse. I think we just explained why there's a rift in the clubhouse. Like Mitch with the prom analogy, I think that's spot on. There are guys that are thinking about, like I said, where they're going to be next month. And Ross kind of feels that. Like he knows that the team is about to be in flux and there are about to be a bunch of new faces in the clubhouse. And that's when he's going to regain control. Like it doesn't matter who you have in there right now. You know, it doesn't matter who's at the helm as long as this is going on.
And do you know Wilson Contreras? Wilson Contreras is a fiery dude. He hates losing. And for the first time in his career, he can see the writing on the wall. He's going to be a part of a losing team for the rest of this year and possibly next year. And he doesn't like it. And that's good. I want players like that on my team. I want players that don't like losing. But he's not going to sit around and let this continue to happen. Like, I think it's a good thing that he's vocal and he's going to start maybe taking some more leadership. Like he kind of sees the baton passing from Rizzo being the captain and the leader. Like, no, like things got a little loose and he's like, I'm going to tighten them up if I'm going to take over, and things aren't going to be, people are going to be focused and ready to go. People are going to play with passion. And so I like that. Like, cause I'm a pretty passionate, when I played baseball, I was pretty passionate. If something messed up, I let them know. I also came alongside and brought it full circle afterwards, but like, that's the type of guy I want on my team.
So
100%. Yeah.
Rizzo to the Angels. What?
Well, we'll get into our theories there.
Did we draft a left-handed first baseman?
No,
I don't know.
I don't think we did.
We didn't.
So how many players do you think for the last 2 to 3 seasons have been thinking about where they're going to be in 2 or 3 seasons?
I think it's on their minds constantly because no one's been extended.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I think Bryant is a prime example.
This is like the 3rd season, at least for Bryant, that people wondered where he will wind up.
Yeah. And I mean, imagine, people talk about, imagine at your job, you have people openly talking about, oh, Jeff is going to get canned, or Jeff's going to get traded to our competitor. But we don't know.
I'm dusting it off.
Hey, you never know. I mean, no, obviously not.
Right.
But that's kind of the thing. It's like he's had the media and then us fans constantly talking about where's Bryant going to be. And I think there was a big shift this offseason of people realizing like, oh, he should stay right here. The problem is that should have happened 2+ years ago as soon as the trade rumors surfaced, right?
Yep.
Chicago fan, like we should not have stood for Bryant anywhere else being talked about. From day one, it should have been no. Bryant is the future of this franchise. And I think it was difficult at the time because Rizzo was playing better and Bryant was injured. But now this season, look, if we can only extend one guy, I love Anthony Rizzo, but it's got to be Chris Bryant. For the future of the team and remaining competitive, it's got to be KB. But yeah, I think the lack of focus over the last few years that we've seen, or just the lack of consistency, could definitely be attributed to that.
So I saw a tweet earlier. It might have been Sunday or Saturday night, but Nico Horner is the core of this team.
I tweeted that, yeah.
Was it you? I couldn't.
It was me, yeah.
I
and
worked
it was
a lot
just
of long hours this weekend, so when I was like scrolling through Twitter trying to go to sleep, I just read it. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a pretty good point.
I just straight up said Nico Horner is the core. I think he maybe went 2 for 3 in a losing effort or something like that. And it just, you look at him at the plate, and the guy just has a fantastic approach, and that's frankly why especially if you're looking between KB and Javi, that's why you sign KB long term, because he's got a similar approach. Yeah, he strikes out a little bit, of course. I mean, everybody does in today's game, but not as much as Javi. And he still knows how to. He understands situational hitting, and that's obviously, I think, what we're going to see Hoerner continue to do well as he continues to progress. But yeah, I am 100% in on Nico. I look at the minor leagues, I look at Amaya, and as much as I want him to be able to fill in for Wilson, it's not going to happen. I mean, I know the guy's only 22, but his best average in a season is 256. His on base percentage is fine, but he's not going to give us the pop. You can't. Wilson is this is a hot take, boys. Wilson is to catching for the Cubs as KB is to third base for the Cubs. Like you're just not going to find a comparable guy out there, and you're not going to be. We didn't draft Harry Ford or Henry. What's his face? First overall pick. But yeah, I think Nico and Wilson and KB. If you can build around those three guys, that should be the core. But I mean, it's all up in the air, obviously.
Yeah, and when you talking about Nico and talking about the future, like I've just been thinking about this a lot this week, especially when we're talking about like who we're going to be trade partners with and who we're going to like maybe work with. And you look at like, I've just been looking at the Giants a lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
And you look at what the Giants did, and they did something kind of what the Cubs did a couple of years ago. They zigged when everybody zagged.
Right.
So right now their lineup is, and we played them and we got smoked by them. Like it's a roster full of guys that nobody really knows, but they're contact guys. They're above average guys. They're not like stars. They're just above average quality guys that put the bat on the ball and have high slugging percentage. They're those type of guys. And it's like, I can't name more than like 3 guys on their roster,
I'll give you
but
2.
They're Posey, Crawford.
I'm out.
I think I could name the starting 9.
But it's like,
still on the team?
But before this year, I didn't know who they were. Like last, like, and so like, and I think Jed is now looking at them and like seeing what they're doing, and I think he's trying to draft a little bit like them, and I think he's trying to shift the focus of like, no, we need guys like Nico. We need guys that put bat in the ball.
Yeah.
Are high energy guys, are quality guys, just above average, no stars. And we have Brennan Davis before the last month. I mean, he had a very low strikeout percentage. It's jumped up the last month, but like those type of bats in our system are starting to rise up through, which I think that's the type of guys he's getting and going after. I think you'll see in the trades, those are the type of guys that he's going to try to acquire.
Yeah, I think I'm glad we're kind of talking about the draft now. I think Dan Kantrovitz running the draft is it's a godsend. I mean, you see what he did in St. Louis and what he did in Oakland.
Yep.
And I really think that listen, I haven't really taken a deep dive into anybody past, I think, the 4th or 5th round pick today. But one of the key takeaways that I've seen is that he's taking the risky picks, the guys who have, it's high risk, high reward guys in a lot of these cases. And listen, I'm here for it because I'd rather, how many draft picks actually pan out and make to the major leagues? Like Daily Random Cub, which is a great Twitter follow, is going through the first round pick of the Cubs since the draft was, began in whatever 60 something. And a lot of these guys, like I'd never heard of, and he talks, he mentions the guy's name, maybe a fun fact, and then how many games they actually played for the Cubs. And I think that's a really interesting thing to look at.
Well, that not only they don't play for the Cubs, but like it's just in recent years, there's been Gleyber Torres and Eloy Jimenez never played for the Cubs. They were highly touted prospects, and we shipped them off, one to New York and one to the White Sox. Well, we never. How many of these guys they drafted today that'll never ever
true
make AAA for the Cubs?
Yeah. That's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, I think the one encouraging takeaway that I saw, and I can't remember who tweeted this, but someone said something along the lines of, is it Jordan Wicks? Was that the first round pick? Yeah,
that's first pick. Yep.
So Wicks is a college arm, 22, I believe, and theoretically not far from the show, right? Like maybe a couple years, maybe in a couple years we'll be able to see him out of the bullpen or something. But somebody said that looks more to me like a retooling pick than a rebuilding pick. And that is something that I am really, really curious to see with these trades that are inevitably approaching. Who are we going to be getting in return? And I know I'm kind of getting ahead in the notes here, but I'm very, very curious to see who Jed tries to get back in these trades. If we're going to get more, 18, 19-year-olds like we got in the Darvish deal, or are we going to get some guys who maybe are, maybe some quad A guys or like post-hype sleeper, previous, top highly touted prospects. And that's who I'd be going for. I mean, guys that you can buy low right now that had all the talent, and for whatever reason, it's just not clicking where they are right now. That's what I'm hoping to see. So I think Wicks as the first round pick is an encouraging move.
Yeah. Wicks out of Kansas State. He's 6'3", 220. His fastball sits at 96, but his pitch is that changeup. He has just one of the best changeups in college baseball. He was rated one of the best college lefties in college baseball. And he looks like he's close. I mean, from looking at listening to Brian Smith and some of the other guys talking about him, they think that he's going to jump quickly and that by 2022, he's going to be in Double-A, with ending that year in Triple-A, and then 2023 being in the rotation.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So when you look at the rotation of the future here, by that 23, that will be Hendricks' last season. Then you have Alzolay. Then you have, hopefully Braylon Marquez gets up there by then. 23, that's still 2-3 years away. And then you have Justin Steele, who is being extended out and lengthened out down in Iowa. Went to his game yesterday, just dominated. Was sitting at 96 with his fastball, looked really sharp. And then you have this Jordan Wicks, another lefty in the rotation. There's your 5 of the future that could possibly be this rotation. And that's not counting if we're going to make any trades or if we're going to go after any top free agents, which we will have a ton of money to do. Right. So this is, in what you talked about, it's a retooling. And when we look at so there was an interview with Hoyer about the trade deadline coming up, and he said, this was kind of his quotes. He said, 11 days ago, we were on the full on buy side, but things change fast. And obviously now we're getting a lot of calls and we're heading in a different direction. Life comes at you fast. And so, but he did go on to say, he said, we're in a different situation now than when we were in 2012. And that was kind of the rebuild of what got us the championship in 2016. He said, we're not labeling it a rebuild. It is a retooling. And so that's something that, us Cubs fans, I mean, I love to hear that. I don't want to hear a rebuild. It doesn't work out as much as it doesn't pay off usually as much as teams try it to do it. That retooling, we are a big market team. We need to act like a big market team. Right. And I like the way we're doing it with draft. I like the way we're going to do with trade. When time comes, we're going to have a ton of money to go spend and get those guys like the John Lesters that we did back in the day. We will have that money to go do that. I would just up front, and Jake, you've talked about it, up front, do that now, sign KB.
Yep.
Do it up front. Kind of like what the Lester thing, that was meant to be up front. They went ahead and got a little ahead of schedule, but up front, they're like, no, we're going to set the tone of the Cubs way. That was the thing back then. The Cubs way. We're going to go get John Lester, a proven winner that's going to set the course of how this franchise is going to go. He's going to set the tone. That same thing needs to be done with a guy like Chris Bryant to set the tone with this is the direction that we're going to be going. and we're going to keep adding pieces around him and Contreras and Hendricks to make this a championship team.
Man, if they trade him, like, how much money are they going to have to offer him to come back? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult question. I feel like Jed was quoted talking about those situations, actually. I feel like somewhere, maybe it was him. I thought he was quoted somewhere. I read that him talking about, like, Chapman getting re-signed by the Yankees, and he said it would be something that they'd be open to. And I think inevitably what we have to accept as Cubs fans is one way or another, Bryant's going to be testing free agency, whether he gets traded by the Cubs or not. He's got Boris as an agent. We know that that's going to happen. He's going to try to be fetching top dollar.
So he's not going to
I think
start
the other
season?
thing. Say that again?
So he's not going to be starting the season? He's going to be a late signee? Like a lot of Boris's guys?
Let's not even get into the labor talks that are going to be happening this winter, right? I mean, I can't even wrap my head around that yet, but it's who knows? Who knows what's going to be happening to start next season? I didn't really mean to go there, but one point that I wanted to talk about, thinking about the retooling or the idea of retooling. Ideally, and I think we've talked about this. I think we talked about this last time I was on. Ideally, you sign Bryant, and then I think you go all out to sign Corey Seager. That's the kind of bat that you need in the lineup. Get another good lefty bat. His splits are fine, but then I think the only hitch in that plan, they've got to add a pitcher. They have to add a pitcher somewhere, and I'm looking at the pending free agents right now. I mean, like Clayton Kershaw is going to be re-signed by the Dodgers. He's not going anywhere.
I don't know Clayton Kershaw.
I would have taken Clayton Kershaw 5 years ago, not the Clayton Kershaw that we would get.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it's all guys. Like Kevin Gossman's probably going to stay in San Francisco. Charlie Morton's 38. Like, there's not a good crop here. So that's the only problem is, like, if we do sign those guys, we got to get somebody to shore up the rotation. And right now, I just don't think we have an answer inside the organization. I mean, Alzolay looked great to start the season, but ever since he had that blister problem, he's come out and just been giving up dingers left and right. And it is hard to watch. It's like, man, he looks locked in, and I want to feel like he's locked in, and then it's just like deep ball. And it's so frustrating to watch.
In the same at bat, he will look really good, and then he will miss on a location with one pitch. It's like he makes the guy look like a fool on a slider, and then he goes back to that slider again and hangs it. And it's like he has elite stuff. I believe in his stuff. It's, can he take the next step and be able to be consistent enough with that stuff and control the at bat? A lot of times I think he's letting the batter control that bat, and then he's pressing and then getting that pitch, and he's losing it and leaving it up, and they're driving it.
Yeah.
So, Jake, I know you wanted to get into your positives and negatives of the first half of the season. So hit us with your positives and negatives for this first half of the season.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll be quick with the positives. I think you guys could probably guess. Yeah. I mean, seriously, there aren't. Patrick Wisdom is an obvious choice. He, burst onto the scene really hot in May and June, but then kind of started to cool off in end of June and July. Still has an extremely high K rate of 38% on the season. His success is not sustainable with that. He's still hitting the ball really hard, but July he saw an increase in ground ball percentage and a significant drop in line drive and fly ball percentage. So obviously that's going to lead to a lower batting average and worse results. I want to caution Cubs fans, as I did a month ago, probably on Twitter, like, hey, buy into Wisdom, but realize that at some point the magic is probably going to wear off. The rest of season predictions on Fangraphs basically have him as a 97 WRC plus for the rest of the season, which is just below league average. And if we're, entering retooling mode, I guess we'll take that from him. And then second positive, obviously, has been the bullpen. Chafin and Kimbrel, obviously, they're two standouts. Winkler was roughed up in July, but he actually marched through June. You look at his numbers, and he was one of the best relievers in baseball. Tepera really started to cool off in June. Hopefully, with some rest and relaxation over the All-Star break, we see him either come out for the Cubs in the second half and pitch to what the expectations he set, or he becomes a trade chip. I don't know. What do you guys what are your guys' thoughts on the bullpen specifically? I'm curious. Do you guys have you thought about like the sticky stuff? Do you guys think that any of these guys are being hurt by that ban?
When we talked about it last week and the week before, I mentioned that I think the only one that really was extremely high spin rate guys, even out of our bullpen, was Nance.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he was affected. I think there's something there. I don't want to accuse anybody, but I think he might have been affected.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think Tepera was. I think Tepera's issue was just he was out there all the time, just overused.
Yeah, it felt like he pitched every other game. Yeah.
And so just a little bit of dead arm, and he was just missing his spots. Like the big thing with Tepera was why he was so successful this year was his walk rate was just way down. And so when he's not walking guys aren't on base, and he's not putting high leverage situations, and he's making the good pitch. And so I think that was Tepera's issue towards the end. I really don't think, when I look at the other guys, I don't think Winkler, he's still been successful this last month. So I don't think that it's been an issue with mostly of our bullpen. So
yeah, Winkler, I looked into his spin rates, and they're weird. They're all over the board. I mean, like super inconsistent, and it's kind of been that way all season. So I didn't really pin anything to him with the substance issues. Yeah, I don't know. I think that the intriguing thing then too, there's still some arms at AAA that we have left to bring up, and we talk about this again. Yeah, futures game, scoreless inning. That's a big deal.
And he was hitting 101 in the futures game.
Yeah, he's no joke. Stuff's no joke. So that's good to have that on the periphery.
He has some guns. Like, have you seen him? Like
these?
He's jacked. Like he's a dude. Like he's gonna be fun to watch in the bullpen in the future. Yeah. What were your negatives there, Jake?
So I'll start with the easy one. That's been the starting rotation. It just, going into the season, I was really actually excited about all the question marks in the rotation. I thought like, okay, well, we're going for this soft tosser approach, and we've got a good defense out on the field, so maybe it'll work out. Maybe we'll, as you said earlier, Mitch, we'll zig when everybody else is zagging and go with low velo guys and see how it works out. And obviously it hasn't worked out super well. I mean, Hendricks is doing Hendricks things. He's fine. And he's doing exactly what we need him to do. He's locked in. Davies has been good. I mean, he had a good stretch of like 9 straight starts of, I don't know, they talked about on the broadcast of like a few weeks ago, but 9 straight starts of really great ball. And I think we'll get more of the same from him in the second half, but a lot of question marks still there. I'll wrap back up because it'll lead us into our next point. But the biggest negative for me is I refer to him as my internet friend because he's liked a few of my tweets. Our guy, Ian Happ. It has been so rough watching him play this season. And it sucks even harder than it would typically because we have the inside look with the compound and because we're getting to know him and who he is as a person outside of baseball. So of course we all want to succeed. We want to see him succeed regardless. But now that he's letting us in, giving us this inside look as to who he, Zach, and Dakota are as human beings, it's like, man, so badly I want him to do well. So I did a little bit of numbers breakdown. Obviously last season he started out really hot. The window that I picked out was from the start of the season, July 24th, till a doubleheader that we had with the Cardinals on September 5th, when he hit 2 home runs in the first game of that doubleheader. And from there, the rest of September till the present, everything really dropped off. So in that window that I just mentioned, he had a 1093 OPS.
Didn't he get hit in the face right before that game?
I don't Oh man, you know what?
Because I thought he hit
happened.
I thought he got hit in the face. And he sat 1 or 2 games, and he came back and he hit the very first pitch of the game, home run off Wainwright, and then later he hit another one, and that was the second game that he's hit 2 home runs off Wainwright. And then since then, he just didn't do anything.
Yeah, so I'm looking it up now. September 3rd, he fouled a ball off his face.
Yep.
Yeah. So you know what? From there, that's when the numbers dip off, and you see. So yeah, I mentioned the OPS and WRC plus. He had a 13% barrel rate, 354 BABIP, which is really high, but his career BABIP is 309. So like you should expect it to be somewhere in the 300s. Right now, his BABIP is a 235, which is absolutely brutal. He's slashing 177, 285, and only slugging 298 in 95 games since the September 5th doubleheader last year. K rate's up, walk rate's a little bit down, average exit velocity is down, barrel rate is significantly down, ground ball rate is up 12%, which is a huge problem. But the number that really stood out to me was his home run to fly ball rate last season during his hot streak was 38.7%, and this year would be first in MLB. Ohtani, for reference, is at 38.4%. This year, Hap, his home run to fly ball rate is 15%. So, I mean, more than cut in half. So you wonder, like, launch angle has been he's average launch angle is 2 degrees lower. Average exit velocity is lower, but yeah, he's grounding the ball. His line drive rate is down, and we're seeing just like an amalgamation of all the negative things happening at once for him. And he just needs to start piecing together things one by one. And I thought that if Hap did well this season, the team was going to do well. I think he's the new you go, we go. I really hope he can pull it together in the second half because he's fun when he's on, man. He is so fun to watch.
What are your thoughts on Hap there, Jeff?
Oh boy. He's got to pick it up. I don't know how you can keep running somebody out there on the field that's not really producing. Yeah. 177 batting average. I think Carlos Zambrano had a better batting average.
Probably right.
And probably more dingers.
But Daniel Descalso maybe had a better average.
Right? I don't know. It's just with everybody having the same kind of hitting profile, like everybody wants to hit bombs into the bleachers. You know, they don't understand if there's a guy at third, it's 90 feet. Just try to put one where somebody's not standing. He doesn't have to go over the fence. You know, he can bounce off the fence for all I care. But yeah, he's definitely got to do something in the second half to pick it up, or I don't see why you would want to re-sign him if he's not productive. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. The thing that we talked about last week, would we trade him? Would he be a trade piece? I don't think he has any value right now unless you lumped him in with somebody else, because we have Brennan Davis coming up, who's going to be center fielder. I mean, talking earlier this year, I was like, yes, Ian Happ, Nico Horner, those are guys to build around, because you saw last year the potential that you had in Happ. But I always have to go back to the swing. I like guys, and I like that we've been drafting guys, and you look the guys that have come up and really done well, that have the short, quick, get the barrel in the zone, and it's in the zone for a long period of time, like the Nico Horners, the short, quick, compact swing. The Brennan Davis, if you watch Brennan Davis, he has a very short, compact swing, not a lot of swing and misses. Those are the type of guys that like you can see succeeding at every level, that maybe aren't going to be amazing guys, but you look at like Brennan Davis, he could be a Mike Cameron. Like he could be that type of guy that's a contact guy that is going to drive the ball. When I look at Ian Happ, he has a very long swing, and I feel like he has a lot of holes in his swing. And so that is where it's like, okay, is this a guy that we want to build around? Is this going to be a core three? I know Gil asked us a question of like, who are the three guys that we're going to build around? I I don't know if Ian Happ would be one of those guys that I would want to build around. Nico, you talked about him. Yes, I'd want to build around him. So yeah, Nico or Ian's it's been tough because, like you said, we personally kind of like know him now, and so we feel like a little bit of a connection listening to him on the compound, where you want him to succeed, but he just hasn't done that. So
he's got too many irons in the fire. He can't focus.
That's kind of what it feels like. Yeah.
So Kelsey, yeah, you said who are the three that we would build around. That's tough right now. I mean, we have Hendricks through 2023. I feel like he's one that, like, unless they want to trade him, I feel like he would be one that I would want to build around. I feel like Nico is one I want to build around. And you're probably talking about guys that are currently on the roster, I'm guessing.
I'd say that's the challenge. Yeah.
So right now it's those two, and we've talked about signing Chris. He's one. And then I would say Contreras. You're not going to find a catcher like Contreras. Those are the 4 minus 1 of those are the guys that you want to build around for the next. They're going to pass the torch to the next guys like the Brendan Davis, the Brandon Marquez, the guys that are going to be coming up that might join them to make another run at this.
Agreed. Yeah, I can't think of anybody else. I mean, if Hap picks it back up in the second half, toss him in there tentatively. But I mean, that's the problem right now. Like the depth at position player at offense is not a lot. I mean, I kind of liked what I saw from Sergio Alcantara when we first brought him up, but they
figured him quick. They figured him out how to pitch him fast.
Yeah.
It took about 2 series, and they're like, nope, we know how to go after this guy.
Yeah.
Speaking of like a little bit of like down on the farm, like these are the guys that have been doing really well with the minor league. We can start out with Brendan Davis. Hit 2 home runs in the future game yesterday. Won the future game MVP in his last 20 games. With
the last Cub to do that?
The last Cub, Soriano. Soriano hit 2 home runs in the future game. He was there's
MVP.
Oh, well, he won MVP too. There's only one other guy to hit 2 dingers in the futures game. I can't remember who the other one was though. Anyway, his last 20 games with Tennessee, he's batting .333. He has 407, 597 with 16 of those being hits. His strikeout rate has increased a little bit, but the one thing that you're seeing is he's been hitting a lot of bombs. His home runs has been, I think he's had like 6 home runs in the last 30 games ish. Just been killing the ball. And so you gotta love what you see out of Brendan Davis. I know early in the season, he got hit with the ball, and so he had to spend some of his time at low A, and I know he got some of his home runs there, but he's one that is going to be a solid outfielder in this for our future.
Is Des Moines the next stop after Tennessee?
So when I was down at the Iowa Cubs game yesterday, I was talking to Tommy Birch, who is a beat reporter for the Des Moines Register and follows the Iowa Cubs. When talking to him, he thinks that he could possibly see him at the end of this year because the Iowa Cubs like to do that, bring them up. But he's like, they might want to just keep him in Tennessee for this year and then starting with the Iowa Cubs next year and then do kind of the Chris Bryant thing, let him start there for the first month, 2 months, and then bring him up to the big league club next year.
Chris Bryant was like 11 days.
Yeah. So
that's going to be gone. The labor negotiations, there's not going to be service time manipulation again.
Yeah. So that's kind of the trajectory that we have on Brendan Davis. Well, other guys,
just because they did the advert, what the fuck?
Other guys that we've kind of seen some really good things out of down the farm is Ben Leeper with the Iowa Cubs. Again, just the other day. He went 1, 2, 3, 2 strikeouts. He was hitting 98 miles an hour. I think he hit it 3 times. Since starting with Iowa, he's pitched 12 innings. He's given up 0 hits, 1 earned run, and 20 Ks and 5 base on balls. So just lights out stuff.
Is that good? That seems good.
That seems pretty good. The Ed Howard, he first round draft pick last year for the Cubs. After starting the season really struggling, I think he was batting like 128 to start out, just really struggling at the plate. In the last month, now he's batting 228, and just you love to see guys, especially young guys, and you kind of expected this from Ed Howard that he would start out. He went almost a year and a half without playing any baseball. He couldn't play the high school baseball last year because he signed with the Cubs early, so he missed his high school year. Couldn't play at all, and so he had almost a year off of actually playing any meaningful games. You knew he was going to struggle. He's facing a little bit higher competition, but you love to see that the young kid can make adjustments. You know his glove is going to play. He has an elite glove and has been doing just you gotta love when you see young guys making adjustments on the fly, kind of, because he is kind of really on the fly making those adjustments and improving kind of as he goes. The other big name has been Ryan Jensen in South Bend. In his last 27 batters faced, so it's 9 innings, 0 hits, 0 base on balls, 6 Ks. And I think that was earlier, and he just pitched again, and he pitched 4 innings, and he didn't give up a hit in that game as well. So Ryan Jensen down in South Bend has just been lighting it up, and he's one that has really good stuff that we're really excited to see. And I talked about earlier, Justin Steele pitching for Iowa, getting extended. He's one that we're going to be watching and hopefully being up in the Cubs rotation the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think we need him because I don't think Jake's going to finish the season as a starter.
Well, we might be able to watch him down here in Des Moines when he makes his extended rehab starts down here, which he might be here for a while.
Right? Yeah, I'll go down and see that.
Any guys that you down in the minor leagues that you're kind of excited to see?
Yeah, Jake.
I'm really keyed in on the pitching prospects. Cole Franklin, Ryan Jensen obviously just went over. DJ Hers, Cam Sanders, a lot of guys that
lighting it up.
Yeah, Hers has been a stud. Cam Sanders started the season really hot. I haven't dug into his numbers recently, but his season stats have kind of inflated a little bit, which seems to be the case at all levels for most of the starters. So I haven't gone into specific game logs to look at how guys have been doing recently, but those are a few. I feel like there's another pitcher that I'm missing out on, but yeah, a lot of arms just because the big narrative over the last few years has been, the Cubs can't develop pitching. So obviously I want them to be proven wrong now. And, with the background, the Kerry Wood K-sign stuff, like obviously, like I want to see the next big.
Signs.
I want to use the signs, Jeff. I want to use the signs, but I like having a homegrown pitching prospect. Like I've been so jealous of the Braves. Granted, they've had some injury problems, but man, the Braves' young arms that they've been able to bring up, it's been really frustrating. It's like I want to see that. So I'm hoping that this crop of guys, I have a lot of faith in Cole Franklin, I think, out of all of them. And then
and he's been hurt with an oblique injury. So that
he's been out for a bit. There's the other guy. Who's the guy that they signed out of Indy Ball? Max Bain.
Max Bain. He's been doing really well.
So that could be a cool story too. So like in terms of like offensive guys, I there are a few on my radar. Chase Strumpf, obviously. I think Nelson Velasquez. I think that's who. I think is that his name? Yep. I think he's in South Bend. He's really turned it on, and just because he's great on social media. Is it Delvin Zinn? Is that his name? The speedster.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. It's just fun, and obviously adding a bunch of new names.
Christopher Morel, the Morel brothers, those guys are going to be fun to kind of watch. I've heard a lot of great things about how Morel plays kind of like Contreras. They're high energy guys, love to play the game of baseball, and just they're excited to get out on the baseball field every single day. So he's a guy and he's been raking. So he's been doing really well, batting right behind Davis in that lineup. That's South Bend. I would love to be able to watch a South Bend game because they got some
for real
ballers down there. Well, let's quickly, before we wrap up, talk about who we think the Cubs are going to make some trades with. We don't need to get into specifics of who they're going to trade for. Who do we think we're going to make the trades with? So who are the teams that you think they're going to be connected with?
Jeff, you want to go?
Not really. I didn't really think about this question. Let's see. I don't know. Jake, take it away.
It's tough right now. I thought that the Dodgers and the Padres would be good trade partners, but their biggest need right now is starting pitching, which unless we part ways with Hendricks, we don't have anybody to offer there. At the same time, obviously both of those teams have prospects that I'm really interested in. I would honestly, if we could make something happen with the Padres, I don't really care that Mackenzie Gore hasn't made his debut yet this season. I believe he's still working out mechanics flaws before or maybe he's thrown a few starts here and there, but the guy is obviously a stud. He was a top prospect for a reason. I'm fine taking a chance on him. If we trade with the A's, if we send Kimbrel to the A's, listen, if we can pry Jesus Luzardo off their hands, you do that in an instant.
Yep.
What I really want to see more than anything, as we talked about earlier on in the show, I want to see moves made that show that we're retooling instead of rebuilding. So I want guys who are ready or just on the periphery of making the major league roster. And hey, if we get some guys in there, like I had a Padres fan reach out to me. This is why I put them on the list. Padres fan reached out to me, said that he thinks a lot of guys, a lot of fans want Kimbrel and Bryant in a package deal. And he thinks that the Padres would be willing to part ways with Gore and Luis Campusano, their top catching prospect, for that package. And if you can get that, you do that in a heartbeat. Although, as I said, they're looking for starting pitching right now, so I don't think they're going to have their eyes on that kind of deal. So it's tough. I mean, as you see in the notes too, Mitch, like you trade it or you break it down, like the Red Sox and the A's don't have a very deep farm system. They're 24th and 26th overall, respectively. So I don't really know what there is from there. I don't think you're going to get one of their top prospects. Definitely not from the Sox with how good they're looking right now, and they want to continuously retool. So I don't know, Mitch. What do you think?
Well, if we go with if they trade Rizzo, I know the Locked On podcast, Cubs podcast, Joe connected with the Red Sox, and the Red Sox just happen to have a top 20 prospect first baseman, Tristan Casas.
Yeah.
Casas, he's the 30th best prospect in the major leagues right now. That'd be a first baseman of the future. That's kind of what the Cubs did when getting Rizzo. They went and got him. I think Casas is in there. Where is he at? I think he's in double A right now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of maybe next year he jumps into triple A there for 23 with the major league club when they're trying to make a run. Another one, you talked about packaging a deal with Bryant and Kimbrel. What about the Giants?
Yeah, the
Giants have a pretty good system. They have one of the top catching prospects, Joey Bart, who's just a big dude. They have Marco Luciano, who, if you watched in the Futures game, played shortstop for the National League team. He's the number 12 overall prospect. So there's their top two. And they have one more that's a pitcher. Where is he at? Nope. Elliot Ramos, who's an outfielder, but has an H. It's Elliot Ramos.
Yeah.
So there, and then right after that is Hunter Bishop, another outfielder that's 64. The Giants have like 5 guys in the top 100. Their next guy is Seth Corey, left-hand pitcher, 84. So they have a ton of guys that they're kind of like the Padres. They're really good, but they have a ton of prospects that they can use. And so that might be another. I do like the A's getting what was his name? Luzardo. Like that's a guy that
it's a long shot, but I think that being realistic, I love the names that you mentioned for the Giants, but I can't think of their new GM right now, but he's doing, I mean, he is reshaping the Giants on the fly and doing a fantastic job. We'd be really hard pressed to get one of those prospects you mentioned. I think maybe Seth Corey, but I just like that's a tough thing right now too. Like we talked about a month or 2 ago, like people were saying like, oh, we're going to trade Bryant. It's like, no. We should extend Bryant because we're not going to get the prospect haul for him that we think we are.
Yeah.
If we get hauls for anybody, it's going to be Kimbrel. And listen, Hendricks is my favorite Cub right now and could go down as my favorite Cub of all time because I love the way he plays the game. I would not be surprised to see him moved. If they're really committing to it, as much as I love him and he's been the workhorse and the win day guy for us now, he's going to get the biggest return. There are teams that need his playoff experience. I mean, the guy is nails in the playoffs.
Yep. And we talked about it. We talked about that last week that we could see Hendricks moved. One, because is he going to be still available to be with the Cubs in the window of their next winning opportunity? Yeah. And if it's 23, 24, 25, his contract's up to 23, are we going to re-sign him again? Like, that's going to be like, is he going to be there the next time the Cubs have a chance to win the division? And that's the question that Jed has to ask himself. Yeah. And if it's no, then yes, then maybe we do shop him because we could get a return that could help us for that when that window is back open.
Yeah.
So. All right. Well, we covered a lot. Have a good All-Star break. I feel like it's a little bit for like watched every single. I think I told my wife I think I've watched every single Cubs game at least like 5 innings of every single Cubs game this season. And she's like, "Yeah, last year you didn't do that." I was like, "Yes, I did. It was only 60 games. I watched all 60 of those games." But it's like it's a grind to be there and watch every single game. And even for those faithful and diehards, like take this All-Star break, take a little breather. It's going to get fun this next month. And do have a little bit of excitement. And this is like Jed said, retooling. Just think how excited you were in 2015, even 2014, them ending the season so strong and Jake coming in and you saw the possibilities of Jake Arrieta, of who he could be in 2015, 2016. Like start that excitement brewing, get the little logs started burning in the fire because that's the way it's going to be maybe here a year away. So Cubs fans, stay with us. Stay with the team because it's still going to be fun, even though the second half of the year might be a grind and might be a little bit difficult to watch at times, just like it was on Saturday. But
just like the month of April and the month of June.
Yep. It'll be fine. We'll get through it together. So thanks for joining us. Jake, thanks for jumping on again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for listening to us on this episode of the Dingers podcast.